Danny from projectmanaverse.com. In this video, I'm going to give you 4 warning signs that you may have a bad communication plan. So first of all, what is a communication plan? Let's start there. Taking a step back, thinking about your project. As a project manager, you have an array of daily responsibilities and things that you need to do. And one of those top things is communication. As a project manager, you will spend most of your time in some form of communication, be it verbally or by email. And in a project, there is a tremendous amount of communication that needs to take place from the start of the project to the end of the project, especially at the start and the end of the project. There's a lot of communication. And you need to think about, as a project manager and with your team, how those communications are going to go out. You need to think about what are the key communications that do need to go out, what are the key messages, or what are the purpose of those messages, what is the tone of those messages, who do they need to go out to, and when do they need to actually go out to. And all those elements of communication are part of the communication plan. They're captured in that communication document. So if you have a good communication plan, you've got all those key communications thought about up front, and you know when you're going to communicate them, who they're going to, and you just have a nice sequence of output, so their communications are going out to the right people at the right time. So that's what your communication plan is. Why is it important that you understand if you have a bad communication plan? If you create a plan and it's not very good, you'll start to see those warning signs, which I'm going to explain in a moment. But why should you care about that? Well, if you have a bad communications plan, that means your communications are not 100% effective on your project. And that can lead to bad things for your project. To give you some examples, it could lead to people or stakeholders not being ready for your project go live to actually take the thing that you're building, take the product and start using it or absorb it into their business area. So that's the first thing. The customers or the business stakeholders might not be ready for your implementation if you don't have a good communications plan, and that could ultimately stop your project. Having a bad communication plan as well can also lead to blockers on your project. To give you a very simple example, if you don't communicate early what you're planning to do in terms of your testing phases, let's say, for example, you want to do your user acceptance testing a couple of months before you go live, and you need a certain test environment for that. If you don't get the comms out and start doing that engagement, you might not realize that that test environment isn't available. Another example is there may be some kind of change freeze on in the production environment, which means that when you want to actually put your product live into the production environment so people can start using it, effectively your project implementation and go live, there might be a change freeze where you're not allowed to put code into the production environment during that time. But when you start to comms these things and you communicate to the wider landscape and the wider stakeholder population, you'll soon get feedback. And if you're planning things that can't be done, you'll soon hear about them. If you don't communicate out to people throughout the project, then you don't get that feedback. Those issues and risks aren't raised and the alarm bells don't go off. So there's a few reasons why you should care about having a good, solid communication plan, because ultimately it can cause problems on your project, and it could, ultimately will stop you from going live when you want to, and you don't want that. Okay, that's the context. Let's now move on to those 4 warning signs. So, warning sign number 1. Okay, this is when stakeholders complain that they don't know what's going on, and this is usually business stakeholders that are taking on your change that might need to be involved in testing or provide some subject matter expertise on your project. But sometimes you get this, you'll have stakeholders just complaining they don't know what's going on, and that is a clear warning sign that your comms plan wasn't good enough, because stakeholders should know what's going on. They should know the latest on your project. They should know where they need to be involved. They should know when the project is going live. They should know the details of the project, and they shouldn't be escalating up the chain of the command, that they don't know what's going on. So make sure you do that. Make sure you think about all those key business stakeholders in your comms plan. Make sure you're giving them everything. So especially if they're involved in the project, if they need to do things, or they need to make decisions, or they need to change their own processes to be ready for the change, they need to be heavily engaged and need a good solid comms plan that's going out, and you're sending out those communications. If you're hearing nothing, that's usually a good sign. Sometimes it can mean they just don't have any idea there's a change at all, which is a bad thing. But as long as they know there's a change and it's pretty quiet, that means your communication plan is pretty good. So that's the first warning sign. The next warning sign is you are struggling to get the resource you need when you need them, if those resources happen to be in the business. When I say in the business, I need to explain this a bit more, because when you are developing software or creating software or changing software, the business is either someone's already using that software, and that someone is usually the business, the people that run the day-to-day activities of whatever your industry is, or it is the operational teams, but it's usually like some kind of business people that are using the software. So they need to understand if that software is changing or if it's being replaced or whatever. So yeah, I lost my trail of thought there. What was I saying? Yes. So, and usually those people need to get involved in the actual testing of whatever you're doing, the software or the new software, because they are the people that will ultimately use it. So they have to get involved in the testing phases. So you need them to help you on your project, and your testing phase will be in a certain window of time. It will have a planned start date and a planned end date. So you need them for the duration of that time. If you find you're approaching that time and you're struggling to get the resource, they're saying they can't spare time from their day-to-day activities to support the project, that probably means that you haven't done enough communication way up front to make sure they knew about it, and they're happy to support you, and they're ready to do so as well, and they've got all the backfill, the people that are going to run their day-to-day operations when they're supporting with the project in place. So you need to make sure that your communication is early, it's good, it's out to the right people, and a good comms plan will make sure that happens. A bad communication plan will probably ensure that does not happen. It will miss people off, or whatever is the reason for it going wrong. But yeah, so if you get to your testing phase and you're struggling to get the resources in place, that is a warning sign that your communication wasn't good enough to begin with. Okay, the next warning sign you have a bad communication plan is that you are struggling to get sign off for your certain documents that you need to get signed off. When I say sign off, that means an approval. You're struggling to get those approvals by the deadline that you have set. This is quite a common one. So you have various documents that need sign off, things like requirements documents, things like design documents, things like test plans. Usually the business, because they are the customers, they're involved in all of those things, and you'll need them to sign off these documents. It's very important so you can move on to the next phase of the project without any regrets, and you know you've done the right thing, engaged all the right stakeholders. If you're putting out these documents and they're not getting signed off by the deadline, again, that's a warning sign that your comms plan wasn't strong enough, wasn't good enough, because you should be having in mind when these documents are going to be written, when they're going to go out for review, and when they need to be signed off. So you can get that in your comms plan and let these people know early, so they've got no excuse. They know that when this time comes, they need to set aside some time to review the documents and get them signed off. If that's not happening, it probably means you haven't done the upfront work in your communication plan to get those stakeholders ready to do that activity. Okay, the next warning sign that your comms plan isn't very good, this is a good one. So you get the same questions from different stakeholders. You keep getting the same questions from different stakeholders. Now that can happen, but it usually means that you're missing something in your comms plan, because you shouldn't be getting the same questions from different people. Now, if you do find that and it happens, it's not necessarily too late to do something about it, because you can collect all those questions up. You know what they are, the common themes. You can get a Q&A document, put it together like a project Q&A, and just release that document, and that should keep people happy. Your stakeholders will then have those questions answered, and it preempts the other people down the line that are going to ask the same questions. Here you go, here's your Q&A, it's got all your answers to your questions in there. So again, but if you are getting different stakeholders asking the same questions, then you probably haven't covered that in your communication plan. Okay, that is the video. I'll quickly just do a quick recap. So what are the 4 warning signs that you've got a bad communication plan? Number 1 is stakeholders complain they don't know what is going on. That is a clear warning sign. So you need to get your act together on that one. Number 2 is you're struggling to get resources in place, business resources, to support you on your project because you haven't communicated early enough to get them ready for them to be able to support your project. Number 3 is you're struggling with sign-offs for approval documents and not being signed off by the deadline that you have set. And then number 4, you're getting the same questions from different stakeholders. Okay, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this one, hit that subscribe button, doing daily videos. And until tomorrow, please take care.